Oh my goodness, Dr. Shawn, it is so amazing to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Oh my gosh, you guys, today, thank you for all of you that are here live or watching the replay. We are going to unpack stress, the effects that it has on your body. What is high cortisol? What is cortisol? And what to look for and what to do. So without further ado, Dr. Shawn is one of my favorite people on this planet. Like nutritional biochemist, the author of so many books on hormone health, cortisol, and microbiome, and the chief scientist and formulator of all of the amazing solutions that we have at Amari Global. Dr. Shawn, the unicorn scientist, you're the best.
Well, I don't know. Do you think people are do you think anyone's watching has stress? Like, do you think people will be interested in understanding about the stress response and what they can do about it? And
I mean,
maybe.
I don't know. This whole conversation, you guys, started when I asked Dr. Shawn for advice. If we've not met before, my name is Dana Lewis. My husband died 10 years ago. This is the 10th year mark. And that was my first real introduction to you, Dr. Shawn. I met you maybe 5 or 6 years into my grief journey, and I was looking for solutions to better manage that grief journey and my stress. Like, I can't believe that was 5 years ago. And the catalyst for the conversation today is, for me personally, I don't know about stress. Over the past year, I got engaged. I bought a new home together with my now husband, sold the previous home that I owned with my deceased husband, graduated a child, planned a wedding, got married. Like, I have had a few things going on, right? Just a few things going on. So I went back to the basics. Like, let's look at the signs of high cortisol and just the telltale things that are a stress response in your body. And those of you listening, I want you to drop in the chats, like, do any of these resonate with you? Fatigue, irritability, trouble sleeping, headaches, digestive issues, anxiety, weight gain, low sex drive, problems with menstrual cycles, and acne, like all of these things. Like, Dr. Shawn, what is happening? What is this stress response, and why is it presenting in our bodies this way?
Yeah. So you know, I'm first of all, I'm so glad that you're doing this, Dana, because so many people have a lot of stress, like what you just described, right? A million things coming at them at once, and all the time, right? That's the sort of two pieces of it, right? Stress isn't necessarily bad, but when we have chronic stress, then it can get really bad really fast. So whenever you're under that chronic stress of lots of things coming at you all the time, your fight or flight response is always on. So you're always producing cortisol. You're always in this fight or flight reaction. You never have a chance to come out of that, right? So we say fight or flight is sort of one side of activating your nervous system, what we call the sympathetic nervous system. If you're always in that activation piece of it, you're never in the resting, restoring, recovering piece of it, the parasympathetic nervous system. So you get locked in this overdrive. You're producing these stress hormones all the time. And those stress hormones are chronically, they can be bad on their own because they're catabolic, meaning they break down your tissues. So they'll break down your neurons so you can't focus. They'll break down your muscle cells so that your metabolism goes down. They'll actually stimulate your fat cells so you'll gain weight. They will interfere with other hormones like thyroid hormone and insulin, so you gain weight. They'll interfere with estrogen and testosterone, so your sex drive goes down. They interfere with neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, so you feel tired all the time and sad all the time. So, you can look at all of those other hormones and neurotransmitters and things like that and say, well, let's fix those. Yeah. Or you can get to the root of the problem and say, well, wait a minute, maybe it's this cortisol overexposure. Maybe it's the fact that I'm always locked in this fight or flight response. Are there solutions for that? And so, let's do that. Let's get to the root of the problem, and let's optimize your neurotransmitters, and let's optimize your inflammatory balance, and let's optimize your sex hormone rhythms. And, so there's a lot there.
Yeah, because a lot of times, though, we just look at the one problem. Yeah. And you think about the list that I mentioned earlier about, fatigue, irritability, all the things that you just mentioned, weight gain. And you look at that one thing and you try to address just that one thing. And it's a matter of diving deeper into fixing that root cause and fixing that cortisol hormone. But that's not commonly talked about.
Right. Right, exactly. You know, when I wrote my first book about cortisol more than 20 years ago at this point, a lot of people didn't believe it. A lot of people said, you know, it can't really be that. It can't be this one hormone that's sort of centrally acting and really being a monkey wrench into all these other things. And so we did a lot of studies to show, hey, if we rebalance your cortisol levels, and it's not just that we're taking a high cortisol down to a low level. What we want to do is restore the normal rhythmicity or circadian rhythm of cortisol. You actually want high cortisol in the mornings to sort of get you up and get you ready to face the stresses of the day. But then you need it to dissipate throughout the day and reach its lowest point at night, so you can get that recuperation and recovery. So the idea is we can use a lot of natural ingredients to lower your overall exposure, meaning you have high cortisol when you need it, and you have low cortisol when you need it. And you don't have what a lot of people end up getting themselves into, where they have sort of medium cortisol levels all the time. If you have this flat cortisol rhythm, then you're kind of blah all day long. You don't really have the energy and the motivation to get things done. And so you just sort of drag yourself through the day, but then your cortisol levels at night aren't low enough for you to get a good night's sleep and recover and repair and come back strong, right? So you're kind of blah all day and you're kind of wired. It's like being tired and wired. And
right.
So it's people, when I say that, tired and wired, people go, yeah, me, that's what I am.
Yeah, because you go all day from caffeine to caffeine to caffeine to quick fix. How can I get through the next couple of meetings? How can I get through the next thing? And then you get to the end of the night and you're thinking to yourself, I have been tired all day and now I'm wide awake.
Yep,
like, what is the problem? I love how you said in your first book, you discuss how chronic stress can make you fat and ruin your health.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like it's true, but again, it's something that we don't really talk about. So, or it's something that's not generally thought to be the actual root cause of your problem.
And I think too, Dana, a lot of people who are in the situation that you just described at the top of this webinar, where you have all these things coming at you, and you've got spouses doing this, and you've got a new house, and you've got kids, and you've got pets, and you've got everything, you've got your job and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
People just kind of go, well, I guess this is how it is. Like, this is my life, and I guess I just have to deal with it. And there's no solution. And then you look around at all your friends and you go, well, they're in the same boat too. We're all just sort of spinning our wheels trying to do our best. But people don't think about, like, wait a minute, there is something that I can naturally do to rebalance all of this, and not just to solve a problem, right? We can solve all those problems that we just talked about. But if you rebalance your rhythmicity, right, get yourself back into that natural balance, you can perform better, right? So it's not just that you solve this problem, it's that you're able to go to this next level of performance. And I think that's what a lot of people think is out of reach to them, but it's very much in their reach.
Yeah, I think that you've just framed that perfectly, because we think that it's out of reach. We think that, like, okay, I have so much going on. I have kids going in 17 different directions. I don't have the time to, like, I'm not a chef. I don't have the time to create, an amazing meal. So my nutrition is going to be subpar and I'm just stuck.
Yep.
Like feeling kind of meh.
Yes.
So if
meh,
we talk,
exactly.
Right.
That's the way
meh.
to describe it. Yep.
And we don't need to succumb to that. Like, we don't need to succumb to the weight gain just because, like, I am a woman over 40. I just turned 50 this year. I don't have to deal with the weight gain. I'm not doing it. Like, there is a better solution. So let's unpack what we can do. Like, you created this sense program that's supplements, exercise, nutrition, sleep, evaluation. I love the last piece, evaluation, because it's not, here's a recipe. And it works for everyone. It's personal evaluation. So share more about that.
Yeah. So the first S in that sense program is supplements. It's using supplements, especially that what we're talking about right now, rebalancing your stress response, rebalancing your neurotransmitters, rebalancing your sex hormones. Those herbs that we use in that supplement piece are what are generally called adaptogens. And so when I just described a few minutes ago, what we're trying to do is restore that normal rhythm of all these biochemical signals in your body. That's what I'm talking about. Adaptogens help you adapt to stress better. So that means that if you have a high cortisol, it'll bring that cortisol down to a normal range. If you have a low cortisol, like a lot of people can go through stress, like long-term stressful periods, and they'll have high cortisol for a while, and then their adrenals just kind of poop out. Sometimes people call it adrenal fatigue.
Yeah, like, pause there for a second.
Adrenal
fatigue, I think, is just a really popular buzzword right now.
Yeah.
So if you unpack adrenal fatigue, like explain that, can you explain that for a second?
So your adrenals never really become fatigued, right? They always have the ability to make cortisol when they need to, but it's a matter of, do they make enough when they need to make it, or do they shut off making it when we don't need very much? So a fatigued adrenal is really an adrenal that has lost its sensitivity to produce the right amount of cortisol at the right time. And so what adaptogens actually do is they get the adrenal gland to make the right amount of cortisol when you need it, such as in the morning to wake us up and get us going, and then stop making it when we don't need it anymore and we want to relax and recover. So, using something like ashwagandha or magnolia bark or something like that we know can restore sensitivity at the level of the adrenals. The adaptogenic effect is that now the adrenals, it's like having a properly functioning thermostat, right? If your thermostat senses that it's too hot, it cools the room. If it senses that it's too cool, it heats the room. It's the exact same idea with adrenals. It's the exact same idea with the pancreas, which is making insulin. People watching have probably heard of insulin sensitivity, right? Which is sort of a precursor for, pre-diabetes and then eventually diabetes. What we want to do is make sure the pancreas is making enough insulin so it controls your blood sugar. We want to make sure the adrenals make enough cortisol when we need it, so that we can have a good stress response when we want and a calm stress response when we want.
So what's one thing that we can do to get that balance? So when you talk about adaptogens, we're talking about Mood Plus as one of the adaptogens. What are the things that you can do to make sure that you're in that proper circadian rhythm?
Yeah, so Mood Plus would be the perfect place to start. That is the most potent cortisol controller on the market because it doesn't work just on cortisol. So Mood Plus has more than four, but it has 8 maybe active ingredients, but 4 of them are really, really potent herbal medicines. One of them helps with overall cortisol response, ashwagandha, and it does it in a unique way. I'll tell you in just a second.
Yeah.
So ashwagandha and magnolia bark can both restore that normal cortisol rhythm. But then what we've found over the years is that cortisol is an important piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle. We can maximize how we help people feel and perform by saying, okay, let's use these herbs to normalize cortisol, but then let's use these other herbs to normalize neurotransmitters like serotonin, for example. We can use an herb, and this is in Mood Plus, called rafuma, that helps to normalize serotonin levels so your mood comes back. So instead of being stressed and depressed, now you're not stressed and you're happier. We can also use another herb called kanna that helps to modulate norepinephrine and can help with resilience. So, now we're getting into modulating stress hormones and modulating neurotransmitters, and we can eventually, we can use different herbs to modulate, menopausal hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, those sorts of things. So, it's one part stress hormones, it's one part metabolic hormones, it's one part neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
But that's what gets cool about it, is that we have these natural ingredients that we can use to help our body restore that normal balance that's been completely upset by all the stress we've been under and the modern lifestyles that we lead.
Oh, all of it. It's completely related. And when we talk about, adaptogens for one, in helping that, but also in just the gut-brain connection in keeping your mood high. So taking your happy juice and adding Mood Plus to that. I know that for me personally, when I first started on this protocol, I had a number of friends remark to me like, well, when are you going to start yelling at this child? This child is doing the same thing he's been doing for so long. And I have watched you as a parent lose it on this child and I, like a couple months into this protocol, I was like, I don't really feel like I need to yell at him. We're just going to have a teachable moment here. And
right.
I almost had an out of body experience where I was like, who are you?
Yeah. What you just described is the best aspect of what we're talking about. So it's not just about lowering your stress. That's a big piece of it.
Right.
But an even more important piece for, I think, for most people is to raise your resilience, which means you're able to handle more stress. And that is the ability to have an appropriate stress response. When we measure resilience in clinical trials, we'll measure something called cognitive flexibility, which is your ability when something irritating is happening, or when the you know what hits the fan. People with low resilience will actually put up their hands and go, I can't deal with this right now. And they step away from it, right? They go, I'm out, but people with high resilience, that same exact irritating, stressful thing, they can go, all right, let's figure this out. Let's solve this problem. Let's come up with a strategy at a much, much higher level. That's resilience.
I love that. And resilience is something that I had no clue that I had none of until I had it.
Right. Until
I had it. And you could have said, do you have stress resilience to me 10 years ago? And I would have been like, sure. I mean, I don't know. Because when you talk about that overwhelm, like this is a whole nother conversation. And somebody just texted me, I guess the chat is not working. So I apologize for all of you that are on. You'll have to message us your questions and we'll try to get to them live, and we will definitely answer them after, but I'm not quite sure what's wrong with the chat. And I'm not going to try to fix that right now. This is not my wheelhouse. But when we talk about having no stress resilience or low stress resilience, we get into the state of overwhelm. Like, well, I'm overwhelmed. And what I would love to know, and you can't drop it in the chat, but think it in your mind, like, what is it that you do when you're overwhelmed? Because a lot of times as moms, we go for the wine. I'm going to have a glass of wine and let this child go bananas, and then I'm going to come back to them. Or you stress eat, or you shut down, like you just mentioned, where it's like, okay, I'm just going to pretend like all of this doesn't exist and, check out for the rest of the day. And instead of doing those things, we can talk about what solutions, like what can we do in that moment of overwhelm? Like, what's something that I can do? Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, one of the advantages of the product we just talked about, Mood Plus, is that it works quickly. So that idea of improving your resilience, that's something that typically takes, a week or 2 weeks or something, that for someone to come, to the same stressful situation and say, okay, I've got this now. Whereas before they would run away from it. Right. So resilience takes a little while because of just how the neurotransmitters change. But one of the ingredients in their Kana actually works on one usage. So, whenever you see people at an Amari event that are getting ready to go on stage, they're almost always taking a couple of Mood Plus capsules about a half an hour before they go on stage, because it doesn't squish your stress response, but it takes it from, let's say your stress response were a dial, right? That goes from, 1 to 10. If your stress response is on a 10, this will dial it down to a 7 or a 6. So you're still having that stress response, which sort of energizes you and activates you, but it's manageable, right? So that could be one way of coping, right? Where you say like, hey, let's take this down and let's put it to a manageable place. But we also do other things, like we do here at our center. Like we'll do breath work. We'll help people just like literally taking a deep breath and holding it for 4 or 5 seconds and then letting it out for 4 or 5 seconds. That is activating your vagus nerve. And that vagus nerve that connects your gut to your brain is helping your body to de-stress. It's helping you to sort of diffuse that stress response. It takes you from that activation fight or flight response and it pushes you into your rest and digest, your parasympathetic response. So that's something that we can do. Exercising, I mean, that's a great one to sort of dissipate the cortisol. There's all kinds of things we can do, but I think you're sort of leading down the road of when you feel overwhelmed, what you reach for is you reach for some junk food, you reach for a glass of wine, you reach for whatever that sort of easy button coping mechanism is.
Quick fix.
Yeah. And I think what people will find is that if they do some of the things that we have here in Amare, they balance their gut-brain axis, they get the right neurotransmitters being made by their microbiome, they take an herbal solution like we just talked about, Mood Plus, then they get to the point where when they do cope, right? I drink wine at night. I love to have my glass of wine, right? But I'm like, when my resilience is good, I'll probably have one glass instead of two glasses, and that's a good thing for what's going to happen the next day.
I love that, because wine has such a terrible stigma, and everyone on this webinar that is trying to lose weight, all of my ladies that are over 40 that are, seeing dietitians, and everyone says, okay, first and foremost, you got to cut out wine. Like, it is what's killing you. And I'm in the same camp as you. Like, I love a glass of wine. Like, while I'm making dinner, I'm going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to have that during my dinner time. It does lower your cortisol on that first glass. I think that wine, for me at least, is more of a feeling. Like, it's a vibe. It's a whole vibe. But preventing yourself from having the second, the fourth, the 20th glass of wine, because you're using it as a coping mechanism. But also, I have found that the longer that I have been on Happy Juice and on Mood Plus, and I think it's Edge and Energy, and you can unpack the ingredients in Happy Juice itself. It helps you to be satisfied easier.
Right. Because what Happy Juice does is that combination of three products, it really is what I refer to as coordinated neurotransmitter balance, right? So Mentabiotics, the one that works in the gut, on the microbiome, on gut integrity, all that kind of stuff, that one's primarily working on serotonin and GABA. So serotonin is sort of the happiness neurotransmitter. GABA is the relaxing neurotransmitter. So if you get that, that's sort of the resilience piece of it, right? Coming from the gut. Mood Plus is giving you resilience coming from the brain. So you can come at it from both perspectives. You can go top down or bottom up. And a lot of people do both, because they want to get all the benefits. But then Edge is all about dopamine. So that's more about motivation. And then Energy Plus is, as you can guess, it's about energy, but it's about a different kind of energy. It's really mental energy that's involved with norepinephrine. So, any of those are going to help somebody who's in this situation. Energy Plus is going to help with, mental energy because of norepinephrine. Edge is going to help with motivation because of dopamine. Mentabiotics is going to help with resilience because of serotonin and GABA. And those are all separate ways we can help somebody sort of cope or help them optimize their performance, however you want to describe that. But a lot of people look at it and go, well, why do I have to choose? Can I have all of those? And that's what Happy Juice is all about.
Yeah, I do Happy Juice in the morning, straight up the way that it's intended to be. And then it's only 10 o'clock. I'm already on like my second Edge and Energy. And it's the dopamine, it's the energy that I'm getting from this, and the mood and the focus that keeps me driving all day long to that performance level that you're talking about. Just show up better.
Right. Show up better. Exactly. And those are all the neurotransmitters that get out of balance when so it ends up being this very vicious cycle where you're stressed out, your cortisol levels goes up. The cortisol is telling you to gain weight. It's telling you to be more hungry. It's interfering with all your neurotransmitters, so you feel kind of crummy. It's interfering with your metabolic hormones, so that's driving weight gain in a different set of ways. So you're not sleeping well. You feel kind of yucky during the day, so you overstimulate yourself. You have that extra glass of wine. You're not motivated, so you're not exercising, so you're gaining. Like it's a vicious cycle to get into, and you just feel worse and worse and worse. And so what we're trying to do is say, let's go in there with these natural adaptogenic remedies, right? That can help people rebalance all of that. And you get out of that vicious cycle of the stress leading to something bad and something worse and something worse and something worse, where you short circuit that response. And in a good way, you take it back to those normal rhythms, and then people get a little bit better and a little bit better and better and better and better. And that's my idea, is that you take this vicious cycle of getting worse and worse, and you completely change it into this virtuous cycle of getting better and better. And that's what you just described a minute ago.
Yeah, because stress is everywhere. And like you had said at the very beginning, the goal is not to get rid of stress. Stress is coming at us. And I wouldn't even say that, oh, I'm a really stressed individual. No, I have a lot going on, and I'm a doer. I like having a lot going on, but I start to notice the tick marks of, this is what you're going to see when you have high cortisol. And I'm like, I'm not doing something right. What can I do a little bit better? So can we chat for a second about the nutrition depletion that comes from stress? So when I was going through the planning a wedding, almost married, have kids in graduation, I started reading about just nutrition. And then I was reading like magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin B, zinc, they get depleted from your body in a higher manner when you're stressed. So then what do? Like a lot of people are, we're recommending like, okay, go get an IV drip, do the IV drip thing, take more vitamins. Can we unpack for a second that line of thinking and what you can do in those moments of high stress if we're doing happy juice and mood on a regular basis?
Yeah.
But then you get to that stress place. What else should we be adding to our arsenal?
Yeah. So there's also I can see in the Q&A feature. So the chat I think is not working like you said, but the Q&A feature is, and people are starting to put questions in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Brittany just asked a question that I think will go right into this one. It says she got a couple questions from her team. Do I have to be on these forever? Right. So what you just asked is a perfect example of this. Once you can, so let me go back to answer your question directly, and then I'll kind of unpack it. Can you can stress deplete your body of nutrients? The answer is absolutely yes. We know that when people are under more stress, they need more of the basic essential nutrients, right? So more antioxidants, more vitamin C, more vitamin D, all the B vitamins, all the B complex vitamins are needed for stress response to to make neurotransmitters and to make stress hormones. So if you're making more of those, you need more of those B vitamins. And as you make more and more and more of those stress hormones, you are depleting your B vitamins. So there are really, really good studies to show that happens. There are also really, really good studies to show that if you supplement people with those essential nutrients, they do better. Their mood is better. Their coping is the bad coping is less, and the good coping is more. Like they just do better when they have more of those nutrients on board. So that's one of the reasons that we have the multivitamin that we have called VitaGBX, and it's one of the products that we don't even talk about very much at Amari, because we talk so much about Happy Juice and so much about the gut-brain axis and so much about the stress response. VitaGBX just sort of is like over there in the corner and people forget about it. But it's one of the products that I think every single Amari customer should be on that product. And it's super cheap. It's probably the best value product that we have in our entire line, because you get more than 50 nutrients in it that all are geared towards maximizing your ability to go through an appropriate stress response, right? So it's a product I do not miss, because I'm under a lot of stress too, just like you are.
I mean, it was a product, and I think you nailed it, that I was like, oh, I don't like, I'm taking so many things. Like, do I really need this multivitamin? I eat really well. I'm going to skip it. And then when I was emailing you, we were talking back and forth. You were like, VitaGBX, like magnesium, vitamin C, your B's, zinc, all the things that you need
all in there
are in there. So making
sure plus a lot of phytonutrients that will actually activate these stress response systems that are inside all of our cells, so that we can protect our cells from all the stress responses right down at the cellular level. So we're activating the NRF2 pathway to protect us from oxidation. We're activating the NF-kappa B pathway to help protect us from inflammation, and et cetera, right? We can really get into the weeds if you want to. But the other piece of this is that if you're balancing the gut, right? So you're doing Happy Juice, for example, and you're improving your gut integrity and you're building your gut microbiome. Now, when you take nutrients, you're going to absorb them better.
Yeah.
So that, like, one of the big problems with chronic stress is that it breaks down all of our tissues, including our gut lining. So if you're chronically stressed and you haven't taken care of your gut health, you can put all the nutrients in there that you want, and you're not going to absorb them. And that's where people go and they say, well, I got to go do an IV drip because my gut's destroyed and I can't absorb my nutrients anyway. So I'm going to inject them into my veins. No.
Tell me how that works. Like, tell me how that works. So like, if your gut is not in a good place and you're going to do the IV drip, like, can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So I'm not against IV drips. I think they're just not the ideal way to go with nutrients, right? So your body wants to get its nutrition from your food. And so, you can go eat a perfect diet and get all your vitamins and minerals, but even then you're not going to be able to get the optimal level. So you have to supplement. But if your gut is damaged because you've been under stress for so long, that chronic stress, that gut lining is broken. Basically, it's not going to be able to absorb the kinds of nutrition that we want to put into our bodies to help us fight back against against all these stressors. And so, you know, an IV isn't going to be able to give you, you can get an IV drip of vitamin C or something like that, and some amino acids, but you can't get all the minerals and all the antioxidants, and certainly you can't get all the phytonutrients through an IV drip. So the most comprehensive way to do it is through the gut, but the most efficient way to do it is to make sure that your gut has good integrity. So you got to fix your gut first, that's mentobiotics, and then you can absorb more of the nutrients. And then it's going to be a more efficient, more comprehensive way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just was fascinated by that question. And I had asked you an email before because I'm on, you know, Happy Juice, I'm on Mood Plus, and I went to do a number of IV drips, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what this is doing for me. Like I'm shelling out a lot of money.
Right. Exactly.
I think that in the short sense, like if you are sick and you want to go get more vitamin C, more something else, and your gut does have good integrity, that can help you catapult over
and then
that
it's a
sickness.
Temporary thing. It's something you do here, and then, you know, you're getting the bulk of your nutrition through your good gut. And that goes to sort of answer Brittany's question, you know, do I have to be on these products forever? And so what I say to people is that our products are very much like flexible usage kinds of products. If you're in a state where you have a lot of stress and you've been under a lot of stress and, you know, you really need some help, let's use a lot of these products. Let's go Happy Juice and Mood Plus and something else.
Kids Mood, like
get you feeling good right now. Let's repair all of this. Let's restore all those rhythms. And then once you get to a good place, then you can go, am I good? My gut's better, so I'm absorbing more. I've got a good multivitamin. I've got a good stress response. I'm sleeping better. Maybe now I'm handling stress better. So maybe I don't need all of these things, or maybe I don't need them all every day, or maybe I don't need 2 servings of Happy Juice. Maybe I only need 1 serving. And now that your gut is better, that's going to be better across your whole gut-brain axis in terms of producing your neurotransmitters. So like once you get better, like that's the evaluation piece of the Sense program. Yeah. You step back and you go, how am I doing right now? Am I having a lot of stress? I'll use more products. Am I having less stress? I'll use less products, you know, because my body's handling it. So I think that's an important consideration.
It's such a great answer, especially like I've been in the fitness industry for like 20 plus years. And it's the same answer that we give people that are like, okay, well, once I lose the weight, do you have to run 3 miles every single day? If your plan is I'm going to run 3 miles every day until I lose 10 pounds. Well, once you lose the 10 pounds, do you stop running?
Right.
No, you probably run twice a week or 3 times a week or something, but you're evaluating what you want to do. And I must have messed up something with the hosting because I can't see the Q&A either. So if you guys have another question, we'll let Dr. Shawn be in charge.
Yeah, so I see another one in here, actually. The weaning process from medication. Is this a goal for someone? So one of the, like all this stuff that we're talking about, Dana, someone's under stress and they might feel a little depressed. Someone's under stress and they might feel a little anxious. Someone's under stress and they've gained weight and now maybe they're on a diabetes medication or something like that, right? None of what we're talking about, none of these herbal adaptogens, or at least the ones that we use in Amare, are what are called red flag ingredients, right? Red flags are things that we know interfere with medications or interact with medications. We don't use any of those. There's lots of them out there. Ginseng, St. John's wort, ginkgo biloba. There's all sorts of ones that we know about. We don't use any of those. And so we can say none of this is going to interfere with any of those medications. But there's a really important sort of asterisk that I put on that. As we get back in better balance, as our gut is better, and as our stress hormones are better, and as all that balance comes back into our bodies and we're feeling better, it's very likely that anyone who's on any of those medications is going to need less of their medications, and they need to go work with their prescriber and figure out like, okay, is it appropriate for me to lower this one down or that one down? Sometimes people are on 3 or 4 medications at the same time, and it can get complicated. So they need to do that, because if they don't, now they're going to be on a dose that's probably too high for them, and they'll start getting symptoms of being overdosed
Yeah.
on many of those medications.
What would those what would a handful of those symptoms, what would that look like if you were being overdosed?
You might start feeling anxious. You might start feeling like jittery. You might start getting, if they're high blood pressure drugs, you might start getting lightheaded and feeling dizzy and things like that. So, I always say to people, like, be aware of how your body is feeling. As soon as you start feeling better on the Amari regimen, then go immediately to your prescriber and say, hey, I started this natural thing. I'm feeling better. Is it appropriate to lower down this one or this one or this one? And they'll work with you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I do know that I have one friend that was asking her biggest thing, and there's, I think, a number of people on this webinar that have frequent headaches as a side effect of high stress or high cortisol. So for them specifically with the frequent headaches, what would you recommend that they do?
Yeah, so it could be Happy Juice, it could be Mood Plus, or like I said before, Mood Plus is going to work sort of top down. Oh, sorry, I just knocked out my glasses. Top down, and Happy Juice is going to work across the whole gut-brain axis, but really more like from the gut up to the rest of it, so bottom up. So any of that's going to help. Headaches sometimes can be that your blood vessels don't have good compliance, meaning your blood vessels aren't opening and closing as appropriately or as efficiently as we want to. And so if we can improve that by improving neurotransmitters and improving, how your blood flow works, sometimes those headaches go away. So I think, like, with stress, that is, sometimes you're literally holding the stress in your muscles, holding the stress in your neck, and that can be like tension headaches. That can be a source of it too. And if you're reducing that tension and helping somebody relax, that's going to be good for them as well.
Does Mentasync play a role in helping with the blood vessels and helping with potential headaches?
Yeah. So Mentasync is an interesting product. So Mentasync does two things. It improves gut integrity. So it reduces leaky gut, right? So that's the gut piece of it we were talking about before. And it also primes your immune system. So you're a primed immune system. So priming the immune system is us rebalancing the immune system activity. So it's an adaptogenic effect for the immune system. If your immune system is underactive and you're catching colds and upper respiratory tract infections and things like that, it'll bring your immune system activity up to normal. So you'll be less susceptible to that kind of stuff. But if your immune system is overactive and you have food intolerances and allergies and those sorts of things, it'll bring your immune system down to normal, right? That's adaptogenic for your immune system. So the headache piece of it, I don't think that's probably directly related.
Okay.
But getting your whole gut-brain axis to work better, a big part of that is the immune system effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And there are, like you said, there's so many things. Okay, are there any other questions that you see that we should address?
Yeah, let me see. Oh, so Pam put in here, fundamentals, mood, Vita GBX, and energy. Mike's lifelong migraines are gone. That's fantastic. And that's probably because a little bit of a blood flow effect. Energy Plus, for example, right? You could do just energy, or you could do energy as part of Happy Juice. One of the main benefits of that product is blood flow. We open up blood vessels with the pomegranate and the polyphenols that we have in there. And that can be a major advantage to people who have chronic headaches.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. It's 10:40. You've given us 40 minutes of your time, and I certainly appreciate it. I know that everyone on this webinar has appreciated just the conversation. You guys, if you're here live or you're watching this on the replay, make sure to reach out to the person that invited you to this webinar to start with. And if you are ready to jump in on any of these solutions, today, everything is on sale. We're doing a flash sale, 20% off promo. Make sure that you've reached out to the person that invited you to make sure that you have the correct customized solution for you. And if you enjoyed this, we will definitely be posting the replays in our groups. Drop a replay in that Facebook group and post your questions there, and just make sure to tag the person that invited you. And thank you so much, Dr. Shawn, for your time and for being here. This has been excellent.
It's great to see you, Dana. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.